The world had lost this amazing person. And they didn't even know. No one else knew what an amazing person that they'll never know, and the weddings he won't be at, and the kids' lives he won't be in. The best thing to do is just, I think, for me, is just sit in the moment and allow myself to grieve.
Besties, buckle up, because the story you're about to hear isn't the glossy sister wives you see on Sunday nights. This is the hidden history of Christine Brown's life inside, and eventually outside, the Brown family's polygamous world. For years, millions of TLC viewers believed they were simply watching a quirky big family navigate love and logistics. But behind the smiling confessionals was a complicated tangle of faith, ego, control, and quiet heartbreak. Tonight, we're diving deep into Christine's own words, fresh from her upcoming memoir and that surprising Instagram live where she read passages chosen by fans. We'll explore the power plays, the spiritual confusion, and the moments that pushed her from silent suffering to full independence. Let's start at the beginning, how Christine discovered that speaking off the cuff isn't honesty at all, and how that lesson shaped the rest of her life. Christine opens her book with a confession that stops you cold. Speaking off the cuff is not honesty. You think about the truth. You figure out the truth. You don't just spit it out. That single line captures the emotional gymnastics of a woman raised in fundamentalist polygamy. Honesty wasn't blurting feelings, it was weighing them, filtering them, wondering whether they might append an entire household. Christine recalls Wyoming as breathtakingly beautiful, a place where she imagined building an eternal family. Her wedding ceremony even included Owen Allred, whom she calls her step-grandfather, sealing her and Kody for time and all eternity. To outsiders, that might sound romantic. But in Christine's world, the idea of eternity carried heavy expectations, obedience to faith, devotion to a husband who could, and often did, share his heart and time with other women. Polygamy, she writes, can trap you in your own head. Do the wives like me? Do they like Kody more? Does he like me enough, or will he drift to someone else tonight? Those questions weren't fleeting insecurities, they were a constant mental soundtrack. Each new wife added another layer of competition and self-doubt. Christine remembers one pivotal conversation with Janelle, the family's second wife. Janelle insisted, polygamy is why you're strong. It's why you'll be able to leave if you ever need to. On the surface that sounds encouraging, almost empowering. But Christine now sees it as a quiet form of gaslighting, a way to frame suffering as strength, to make endurance feel like virtue. If the struggle itself is proof of resilience, then questioning it starts to feel like weakness. Even as she wrestled with jealousy and exhaustion, Christine still believed in the eternal promise. Her faith had been reinforced since childhood. Yet cracks were forming. The Allred family history, steeped in fundamentalist Mormonism, was complicated, even violent. Her biological grandfather, Rulon, had been both a revered leader and a deeply controversial figure. He was killed in 1978 amid sect rivalries. After his death, Owen Allred, Rulon's brother, assumed leadership and became the man who ultimately officiated Christine's marriage to Kody. Christine's book subtly exposes how these tangled relationships blurred the lines between faith, family, and power. To a young bride, being sealed for eternity by a relative who was also a church authority felt normal. But as an adult looking back, Christine can see how hierarchy and kinship were used to keep women like her in place. Fast forward to the launch of Sister Wives. The Browns went from a quiet, insular polygamous household to reality TV celebrities overnight. Christine remembers the first rush of recognition, strangers asking for selfies, teachers at their children's small church school acting starstruck or intrusive. At first it was fun, validation that maybe their unconventional life could be accepted. Soon, it was suffocating. The children, once sheltered from the outside world, were suddenly public symbols of polygamy, subject to both fascination and harsh judgment. Christine now wonders if putting the kids on camera was a mistake. In her livestream she reflected on the modern dilemma parents face, Do I share my child with the internet? For Christine, the answer came too late. TLC had already turned her children into the faces of a lifestyle much of America found offensive and obscene, as she bluntly puts it. Christine's doubts didn't appear overnight. They crept in quietly, long before the cameras, long before she dared to imagine a life without Kody. One early memory stands out. Christine recalls a Sunday school incident that shook her confidence in church authority. "I told my mom." She freaked out. "She made a couple of phone calls and the ladies disappeared from our Sunday school classes. The church leaders kept teaching end times from the pulpit, and I didn't know what was real anymore." She never names those women or explains what was said. But the sudden removal, the frantic phone calls, and the vague talk of end times hint at hidden controversies inside the already fundamentalist sect. For a child, the message was chilling. Authority could hide uncomfortable truths, and reality might not match the sermons. Christine's grandfather Roland's death in 1978 already cast a shadow. He'd been both revered and feared, a charismatic leader who fled to Mexico at one point, served prison sentences, and ultimately died at the hands of a rival sect. After his death, stories of abuse and corruption swirled. Imagine growing up knowing that your family's spiritual patriarch had been both a prophet and a fugitive. Christine doesn't dwell on these details in her livestream, but the context makes her Sunday school doubts more understandable. Faith in that environment wasn't a gentle path, it was a maze of whispered scandals and sudden disappearances. Christine writes candidly about the mental toll of plural marriage, the endless internal questions, the feeling of competing for affection, the fear of being spiritually inadequate. Do the wives like me? Do they like Kody more? If he doesn't like me, will he simply spend his nights elsewhere? These aren't idle worries. In a system where a husband divides his attention among multiple wives, affection can feel like a zero-sum game. And because salvation is tied to the marriage covenant, rejection can feel like damnation. Years later, when Robyn joined the family as Kody's fourth wife, the fragile equilibrium cracked. Christine recounts an eye-opening conversation during a family trip. One day as we traveled home from a group trip, Robyn made a request. "I want to talk about garments," she said. For those outside the faith, garments are sacred underclothes worn by devout members of certain Mormon sections. They're meant to be worn day and night as a symbol of commitment. Choosing not to wear them signals spiritual rebellion. Christine explains that Robyn, who publicly presented herself as deeply devout, suggested they didn't need to keep wearing them. This wasn't just a fashion choice. Within their religious culture, it was a seismic challenge to tradition. The irony wasn't lost on Christine. Robyn had lived outside the church for years before marrying Kody. She'd been married to a man who wasn't part of the faith and likely hadn't worn garments as an adult. Yet she now portrayed herself as the most faithful wife, while privately encouraging a departure from one of the religion's core practices. Christine calls it what many fans have long suspected, hypocrisy. Robyn's influence subtly shifted the family away from fundamentalist practices, while she continued to play the role of devout believer for the cameras. The discussion about garments became symbolic of something larger, control. For decades, the Browns had prided themselves on being a devout plural family. By introducing the idea that the rules could bend, Robyn destabilized the spiritual hierarchy and tightened her emotional hold over Kody. Christine doesn't frame it as a simple villain story. Instead, she notes how this change exposed the fragility of the entire belief system. If one sacred requirement could be negotiated, what else might not be absolute? It was another quiet fracture in the foundation of Christine's faith. Meanwhile, Sister Wife's fame was reshaping the family's daily reality. At first, recognition felt exciting, a sense of validation that maybe America could accept a plural family. But soon strangers approached the kids in grocery stores, teachers made inappropriate comments, and the Browns realized they'd turned their children into public figures without fully understanding the consequences. Christine reflects on how parents today wrestle with sharing their kids online. She herself stopped posting photos of her own child when he was 5. Yet on TLC, her children's faces and struggles were broadcast weekly to millions. The experience forced Christine to confront uncomfortable questions. Did we protect our children, or did we feed them to the lions? Was financial stability worth exposing them to public scrutiny and the internet's cruelty? Her answers are complicated. The show paid the bills, but the emotional cost was enormous. Even before the public pressure, Kody saw the series as his personal stage. Christine recalls teasing him. "I used to rib Kody that the show was called Sister Wives, not Kody and the Sister Wives. And he'd say, but it's really about me." Kody wasn't joking. He insisted he was the most dynamic and therefore the natural star. Christine admits that the show's structure, one man at the hub of 4 wives, fed his ego. TLC paid the family a single check, and Kody controlled how it was spent, reinforcing his position as both spiritual and financial gatekeeper. Even after 3 wives left, Christine notes, Kody still describes it as his show. That sense of ownership gave him leverage over everyone's livelihood. Leaving Kody didn't just mean leaving a marriage, it meant risking financial ruin and continued exposure to an ex-husband who could watch and comment on their every move. Christine's quiet rebellion began with small realizations. Spiritual leaders could be flawed, or worse. Family rules, like garments, were negotiable. The show's structure empowered Kody at everyone else's expense. Piece by piece, the beliefs that once anchored her life began to feel like chains. She started to imagine a different future, one where honesty wasn't filtered, where love wasn't divided, where her children could grow up outside the shadow of reality TV. Christine's quiet doubts eventually hardened into a painful truth: the marriage she'd entered in faith and hope was built on deception. One revelation in Christine's livestream reading stunned fans and underlined years of disrespect. She shared that Kody humiliated her repeatedly, sometimes in front of cameras, other times in private. That new bit of knowledge didn't help our relationship. That he humiliated me also did not help. What else wasn't true? I felt as if I had been robbed of the ability to make a good life decision. Christine doesn't specify which incident she means, but viewers can recall many. Kody once mocked her for eating nachos, calling her chubby and saying he wasn't attracted to her. He admitted, on national television, that he'd never been physically drawn to her, even at the start. He routinely prioritized Robyn's needs while dismissing Christine's concerns about their children. Imagine discovering, after decades together, that your spouse never truly wanted you. For Christine, every offhand insult confirmed what her heart already feared: she'd been living in a one-sided relationship. Polygamy had taught Christine that love was conditional. Affection could be withdrawn at any moment, and spiritual salvation depended on a man's approval. When Kody withheld emotional intimacy, he wasn't just rejecting her as a partner, he was threatening her eternal future. No wonder she describes feeling robbed of the ability to make a good life decision. Her choices were shaped by doctrine and family expectations, not genuine free will. Christine's daughter Gwendolyn played a surprising role in her awakening. Gwendolyn began questioning family rules and challenging her father's authority. Her blunt honesty forced Christine to re-examine the unhealthy dynamics she had long accepted. Christine recalls pregnancy moods that mirrored each child's personality. When carrying Isabel, she felt kind and loving. But with Gwendolyn, she felt a sharp curiosity and defiance that later seemed prophetic. Watching her daughter insist on fairness lit a spark. If her children deserved better, maybe she did too. Life on camera magnified every wound. What began as an attempt to normalize plural marriage turned into a magnifying glass on every conflict. Arguments were edited into storylines, private pain became public spectacle. Christine wondered aloud if she'd sacrificed her children's privacy for financial stability. Teachers treated her kids like celebrities. Strangers demanded selfies. Online critics dissected their appearance and faith. Even as the show brought money, it deepened Kody's control. TLC paid a single lump sum, and Kody decided how it was divided. The wives, legally separate from him, had little power to challenge his choices. By now, Christine's spiritual doubts were impossible to ignore. Her Sunday school memories, Robyn's garment debate, and the hypocrisy she witnessed all chipped away at her belief system. If garments weren't essential, if church leaders could hide abuse or violence, if a husband could break vows without consequence, what else about her faith might be false? The questions multiplied, and the answers never satisfied. Fans react, she deserves freedom. As Christine slowly opened up, first in subtle social posts, then in candid interviews, fans rallied behind her. Online forums lit up with support. Christine is the real MVP of sister wives. Watching her find her strength is inspiring. Reddit commenter. She deserves a partner who actually values her, not someone who uses her for TV ratings. Instagram follower. It's heartbreaking how long she stayed, but seeing her leave gives me hope for anyone stuck in a toxic relationship. Twitter user. These reactions reached Christine. During Q&As, she often thanked viewers for their encouragement. The audience that once consumed her pain as entertainment became a source of solidarity and empowerment. The breaking point wasn't a single explosive fight, it was a slow accumulation of disrespect. But one memory crystallized everything. Christine recalled a conversation in which Kody dismissed her concerns about their daughter's surgery. He prioritized Robyn's comfort over a child's health. For Christine, it was the final betrayal. That night, she later admitted, she knew the marriage was over. The next steps, moving out, publicly announcing the separation, facing Kody's anger, were terrifying. But the decision itself was made. Leaving required courage on multiple fronts. Spiritual, rejecting the belief that salvation required staying in a plural marriage. Emotional, accepting that love shouldn't hurt or humiliate. Financial, building independence after years of shared income. Public, sharing her choice with millions of curious viewers. Christine embraced each challenge. Friends say she planned quietly for months, saving money and exploring housing options while projecting calm for the cameras. When she finally told Kody she was leaving, his shock was palpable. For years he'd underestimated her resolve. But Christine wasn't the timid young bride he'd married. She was a mother protecting her children, and herself. When Christine closed the door on her plural marriage, she didn't just walk away from a husband. She stepped out of a culture that had defined every choice she'd made since childhood. Christine's first mission was creating a sanctuary for her children. No cameras. No shared walls. Just a safe, joyful space in Utah where laughter could replace the tension of Flagstaff. Friends say her new home feels like Christine herself, bright, open, filled with cozy corners for family movie nights and sprawling Sunday brunches. For the first time in decades, every decision is hers alone, from paint colors to holiday plans. It's the first time I've felt like I could breathe, she shared in an Instagram live, her voice steady but her eyes shining. This freedom didn't come overnight. She had to learn how to manage her own finances after years of joint production paychecks. Create new traditions for birthdays and milestones. Navigate the bittersweet moments when some of her older kids still visited their dad. Each step reaffirmed that independence was worth every challenge. In a twist that delighted fans, Christine later revealed she'd found someone who cherishes her, construction executive David Woolley. Their relationship blossomed naturally, away from TV drama. David cooked dinners, planned hiking trips, and treated her children with kindness. Christine often says David made her feel seen in a way she never experienced during her decades with Kody. This isn't a fairy tale rescue, it's a partnership built on mutual respect. And it proved to Christine's audience that healthy love is possible after betrayal. Christine's exit jolted every member of the Brown household. Janelle quietly cheered her on, admitting she'd long questioned Kody's priorities. Mary, though initially defensive, later confessed Christine's courage forced her to rethink her own stagnant marriage. Even Robyn, Kody's legal wife and closest confidant, seemed shaken as viewers noticed cracks in her once privileged position. The children also changed. Aspen and Michael celebrated their mom's independence. Gwendolyn became more outspoken, proudly supporting Christine online. Isabel found relief from the constant tension. Kody, meanwhile, struggled to control the narrative. On camera he raged, accusing Christine of betrayal. Off camera, he reportedly tried to rally the remaining wives to stay loyal. But the old hierarchy was gone. Christine's departure had broken the spell. Behind the scenes, TLC faced a dilemma. Christine's exit was ratings gold, but it threatened the show's core premise, a functioning plural family. Producers leaned in, following Christine's new life while still filming Kody's unraveling household. Viewers loved the contrast. Ratings spiked as fans chose sides, many declaring Team Christine across social media. TLC quietly increased security and offered mental health resources to the kids, aware that filming such raw conflict could be traumatic. This behind-the-scenes support became an unspoken acknowledgement: entertainment should never come at the expense of a family's safety. Christine's story resonated far beyond reality TV. Women trapped in controlling relationships cited her as an inspiration to leave. Former members of fundamentalist groups pointed to her journey as proof that faith can evolve. Therapists praised her candid discussions of gaslighting and emotional abuse. Podcasts, YouTube channels, including Truth Behind TLC, and countless fan forums dissected each revelation, turning Christine's personal triumph into a wider conversation about autonomy and resilience. Messages of encouragement poured in. "Christine, you gave me the courage to leave my own toxic marriage. Thank you for showing us it's never too late." Facebook follower.